Everyone, welcome back. My name is Amara Chandra, just in case you don't know, you probably do. Oh, it wasn't someone's phone, that was you, Jeremy, adding.
Yeah.
It's good. Great. Well, welcome. And as Artisity said, we're starting a new series of 6 nights looking at, I've written it down, the biography of the Buddha. So what can we learn about ourselves? How can we reflect on our own situation through exploring the life of the Buddha? Taking episodes from the life of the Buddha and just reflecting on them for ourselves, and what can that how can that be relevant for us today? And I guess how much have we changed over 2,600 years? Have human beings changed much, or is there a lot in there that we can relate to our experience? I guess that rhetorical question gets answered pretty quickly, doesn't it? I'm sure there's quite a lot in there that we can relate, us ordinary human beings. Yeah, so I was thinking when I started writing this out, the first phrase I wrote down was the Buddha was born as we are born. And for anyone who comes along to this center quite a bit, you'll know that that's a phrase from one of the pujas that we do, one of the rituals we do. And it's really important, actually. It's really important because the Buddha was a human being. And I guess we're human beings, so we can gain enlightenment. We can come to some sort of awakening, or freedom, or love, something bigger than what we have now, something that we can't quite imagine yet, that we can sort of be in the world, or have in the world, or give up, or open up to. A bit like what Artisity was saying in the meditation, an invitation to just let go a bit of what we think we know, and let's see what sort of comes to us. The Buddhist vision, the Buddhist vision, is of something that's a bit beyond what we can imagine all the time, a bit beyond what we could be as human beings. How much love I think I could have in my heart, how much I feel like I could sort of let go and be free, how much, how generous I can be, how open to the world and sort of meeting the world in a really present, connected kind of way. As far as I can imagine that, it's limited. There's more, there's a bigger vision. And so that's great, isn't it? Even there's a sense that the Buddha's enlightenment kept on going. It just got to the limit of, it got beyond the limit of even the words that we had to describe it. But the Buddha seemed to indicate that his enlightening process continued. So, our enlightening process, wherever we're starting from, is like a lotus. It's blooming and opening. So we're all on our journey of enlightenment. And enlightening in whatever direction we want to take that. So the Buddha was born as we are born. So as we look at the biography of the Buddha, that is absolutely key, isn't it? The Buddha was a human being. We are human beings. The Buddha had a mother and a father, was given education. He was a youth, then he was an adult. He took on family and other life responsibilities, just as we do. And in the story in the Buddha's biography, in the story, or sometimes you might call it sometimes I look at it as the myth, especially these early stories. It's hard to, it's not to be taken absolutely on face value. It's a kind of mythic story, and we can pull out of it sort of greater sort of stories with sort of greater significance. So in this in the Buddha's story, he is sheltered from the realities of life by his father. So he's sort of growing up and growing into adulthood, he gets married, he has a family, but he's sheltered from the realities of life because in all good stories, there's a prediction made at his birth that he would either become a great king or a great sage. So his father has decided what he will become. So he's going to shut off the world from him, and the palace and the sort of the life that his father can provide within the clan and within the family and within those sorts of responsibilities, but quite sort of cloistered and barriered. Within that, Siddhartha, the Buddha to be, is going to be given everything he needs. So he's inculcated into a life of pleasure. It's all very nice. He wants for nothing, and I guess his father hopes that if he wants for nothing, that's good. That he won't be looking outside. He won't be looking for something more to enrich his life. He'll have enough riches as well. And I guess his father, his father's reason for this is because he wants continuity, doesn't he? He wants his line to continue. So he wants an heir. His father's building up a power base. So his father, we're told, is some sort of chieftain, perhaps, or king. And so his father's building something, but you can't just let that go at death and let it all disintegrate. You need to hand it on to someone so they can continue it. So there's sort of sense of family pressure, sort of continuity. His life isn't quite his own. It's based on everything that's come before him. And of course, he's supposed to continue to build the family, keep the family name, keep the family honor, and then pass that on to his descendants. So down it goes. It's a bit like you'll follow me into the family business, won't you? And, we have all of that too. We have our family expectations and cultural expectations. And we also have our own internal expectations, what we want to do with our lives, where we feel we could stretch ourselves, how we feel we could express ourselves, who we could be. It's really important, isn't it, to put yourself out in the world and be somebody, enjoy what you do, challenge yourself. So it's not that it's all sort of terrible. We want to be present in the world. Siddhartha's problem was that it was a very narrow life, and it was very much based on pleasure, and he didn't really have much choice in it. So he's got everything at his feet, everything is provided for, and everything is mapped out. So his future looks bright. However, there is a problem. He's not happy. It's boring. It's really boring. I guess some of us must have had these sort of experiences as well. When you're at the limit of something, you're sort of really comfortable with it. Or you've got into a bit of a rut and you're sort of not sort of stretching yourself, and life gets a bit dull and a bit boring. I suppose his life wasn't speaking to his full potential and to his full potential as a human being, who he could be. It wasn't speaking to him; it was speaking to what he should be. And it was just hedonic pleasure. And as we know, the sort of pleasures of the senses, you've got to keep building them up because they come and they go. So you've got to get more. They come and they go. And so then you either want more and you want more pleasure and bigger pleasure because you sort of need more stimulation. So he was in this very pleasurable realm, but he was a thinking person and a feeling person, and it wasn't enough. It was a bit dull in the end. So there's great descriptions and in text and in art of parties and dancing girls, musicians, and the texts tell us that he had 3 palaces, all one for the summer, one for the winter, and one for the rain. And it had different lotus ponds, different colored lotuses in the different ponds. So he's living this fantastic sort of life of pleasure and luxury, but it's a bit boring. So he decides to break the rules, and he thinks, I need to go beyond where the boundaries that have been set up for me in my life. I need to go exploring. So I think it's really interesting. He speaks to his charioteer. So if he has a charioteer, he must have left the palace before. But anyhow, the story is he's never left before. So he speaks to his charioteer. And I guess the charioteer, is a lower social class. He's a worker, isn't he? But, it's his worker. It's the worker. He sort of speaks to him and he says, oh, take me out. And I want to, I just need to get out beyond the palace. Let me see what's out there. And so beyond take him out sort of from what's forbidden by him. And I guess I sort of use this phrase, he got off his high horse somehow. So he gets out of the palace and he gets down off his high horse. So from his sort of elevated position, sort of gets onto the sort of the dusty road and just meets life as it is. And he goes out 4 times and he sees 4 different things, the 4 sights. So I'm just wondering if we might know what they are, and there might be enough of us here who do. So our first task this evening is to just to get into groups maybe of 3 and see if we know what these 4 sights are. So what the 4 sights are, and then maybe if you have a sense of what they might mean to the Buddha. Now, if you don't know, that's fine. We'll come back and we'll sort of put our combined minds together and see what we do know. But I thought I'd just sort of put it out there. If you're completely new, don't worry. Somebody around you is bound to know, or not, actually, or not. You can sort of talk about it. So if you are experienced, maybe form groups together so that, the experienced people aren't sort of giving the answers giving the answers away, because it makes it a bit boring, doesn't it? If you're new, it's like, oh, well, it's answered now. I didn't have to contribute. So why don't we get into groups just for, say, 10 minutes and see what you know about the 4 sights. You see how well I can do this. So, what was the first sight? There's lots of people who know it, so somebody brave shout it out.
Old age.
Yeah. So he went out in his chariot, and he looks out and he points to this person, and he says to his charioteer, "Oh my God, what is this?" And the charioteer says, "This is an old person." And he goes, "Well, what's this? What's an old person?" And he can see me just the other week, actually, with my bad back, bent over, maybe a few more whiskers than I have, bent over, and really struggling just to walk along the street. Maybe arthritis, a bit of pain, very slow. Not the youthful person, struggling at the end of their life. He saw old age. Then he goes out for a second time, and somebody besides Prakash. What did... Illness. So he sees an ill person, and we don't see this so much, do we? We don't see, we see a bit of this, but we don't see illness in the same way that you would have seen, back in those days. You would see very, very ill people coughing up their guts by the side of the road, or perhaps with open wounds, with really terrible diseases, maybe lost limbs, wounds from war, pockmarked, sorry, going on, really seeing sort of illness. Really seeing illness. And actually, when you are with someone who's really ill, it's quite something, isn't it? I'm sure all of us have sat with people who are really ill, and it can be really hard to take. Or if you've been really ill yourself. So seeing illness straight on. Third sight. Yeah. So again, we don't see this so much. We might see a funeral procession go past, a hearse. I remember when I was young, because I grew up in a small country town, everyone would stop for the funeral procession, and all the cars would stop, and the hearse and the cars behind would all get right of way. And so everyone would stop. And there are still a few old men with hats around, because I did grow up in a really small town, and they'd take their hats off. So we'd see that, but we wouldn't see the actual dead body. We wouldn't see the actual sort of decomposing, ugly, frightening, smelly dead body. So that was the third thing, and it's shocking. It's shocking for Siddhartha at this time. Whether it's, it can't be the first time he's ever seen these things. So that was the second part of my question. Somehow it hits him in a different way. So then the fourth sight is, thank you, a wandering holy person. So he must have looked quite different, this person. They are often wearing rags or maybe naked, maybe with a really long beard or matted hair, sort of all wound up. But in my version of this story, there's something still, composed, radiant about this wandering holy man that the Buddha sees. It's not just an ordinary wanderer. There must be something that really shone out from this person. Or maybe it was just the simplicity of having given everything up, coming from the sort of the riches and the luxury that he lived in. Maybe just seeing someone living a really simple life was just like, that can be a path for me. So they're the four sights, and they're absolutely sort of fundamental to the Buddha to be's journey towards Buddhahood. He sees reality in a way that he hasn't ever seen it before. So from what I was just saying, I wondered if anyone did have this sort of sense of what might have made the difference to why you thought the Buddha to be might have seen things differently this time, in this sort of in this version of the story. Some brave person's going to say something really good now, aren't they?
Vision.
Vision. More than one word, Nagavira.
Those four things represent a more deeper vision of the way things are.
That's true. Why? But why now? Like I was just talking about the sort of the luxury of the palace, and that the sort of like this sort of rub of boredom. Well, anyhow, in a way, for me, it seems like that there must be a link in there. Somehow he's really willing. He's able to see it in a way that he hasn't been able to see it before. And again, I think we can do that, can't we? Sometimes when something hits us, we see the world anew. So I remember when my dad died, and, just being really, I'm just thrown into a different sense of reality, and I'm walking around town, just watching everyone going about their day-to-day stuff, thinking, oh, that's usually me. I am actually going about day-to-day, but we all just seem so busy for no reason whatsoever. I'm just, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm mourning. I'm looking at things from a different reality in a way. And I think there must be something in the Buddha's experience at this time where he's in touch with the bit of suffering. He's finally in touch with some grit in his experience that means that he's really looking out at life in a kind of different way. So we did a little meditation here just 2 weeks ago, and I led this sort of imaginative journey into the forest to meet the Buddha under a tree. And in it, the Buddha, the Buddha sort of said to us in an imaginative way, "Why are you here? Why have you come?" And I think there's a sense of asking ourselves that question. I'm still on that myself, so you get the same talk. But, why are we here? What is it in our experience that is a bit uncomfortable? So I think we've got all these different ways to look at it. Sometimes we come to the Buddhist center and we come to Buddhism because actually there has been a shift. There has been perhaps a bereavement or a loss, something that's really shifted our perspective. And we're looking at the world in a different kind of way. Sometimes it's more like there's an old sadness that's there that might be sort of leading us on. Nothing particular has changed, but now's the time to address something that just this sort of longing perhaps in ourselves for something deeper and richer in our own lives. Perhaps we feel that there's a creative part of ourselves, or dare I say, spiritual part of ourselves that needs to sort of needs to have a bit of space in our lives. And then sometimes it's 1,000 paper cuts, so nothing in particular, just these annoying little paper cuts, these annoying little sort of irritations in life, and that's sort of bringing us. But I think when we get in contact with that in our experience, then we ask the deeper questions in life, or we start to sort of question how we're living our lives and see things from a different kind of perspective. The Buddhist word for this is dukkha. We experience our dukkha. So dukkha means unsatisfactoriness, sometimes translated as suffering. I think it literally means that the axle going through the two wheels of a cart or something, they're not well made, and so you get a bumpy ride. And that's how I think about it. It's like, oh yeah, life's a bumpy ride, isn't it? Life's a bumpy ride, and sometimes you're really sick of having a bumpy ride. So you really know. So, but the point is to, well, actually, the point is to move closer to it. Actually, so in this lovely biography of the Buddha, I'm going to just read a little passage. It says, Gautama sensed that dukkha couldn't be allayed by solving his worldly problems, or even by changing the world itself. The source lay much deeper. And the sutta gives a vivid description of the shattering emotions that Gautama felt once he'd seen these four sights. It sort of says he feels horrified, humiliated, and disgusted. And so these are some quotes from the sutta. It says he says, fear is born from arming oneself. Just see how many people fight. I tell you about the dreadful fear that caused me to shake all over. Seeing creatures flopping around like fish in water too shallow, so hostile to one another. Seeing this, I became afraid. And then came the insight that determined what came next in Gautama's life and shaped its future course. So he says, this world completely lacks essence. It trembles in all directions. I longed to find myself a place unscathed, but I could not see it. Seeing people locked in conflict, I became completely distraught. But then I discerned a thorn, hard to see, lodged deep in the heart. It's only when pierced by this thorn that one runs in all directions, so that if that thorn is taken out, one does not run, one settles down. So I think the thorn is his experience of dukkha, of this sort of suffering, and he's sort of wondering how he can sort of remove this thorn from his heart. Yeah, which personally is an image that sort of really speaks to me, you know, taking up that thorn from the heart. So how do we do this? So the Buddha left home, so he decides, right, I can't meet this in myself in this palace environment. It's too stultifying, it's too rigid, and I'll never be able to sort of go deeper in this busy environment. And he leaves home and goes to be a wandering ascetic, like he's seen that he in the four sites. So yeah, so then he can sort of go deeper. So what about us? How can we not just be in contact with that thorn, that sort of that dukkha, but get to know it a bit and sort of see how we can sort of maybe pull it out, or find out what the irritations are anyhow, if it's not that particular thorn, you know, what sort of stops, what sort of trying to find the right way to say it. Yeah, I guess just being just being with ourselves more. How do we be with ourselves more? Get to know ourselves and drop a bit deeper into our experience. I think that's the path. So in our busy lives, we mostly just skim on the surface of ourselves. Not always, but often we are only on the surface of ourselves. We're only on the surface. So we don't sort of find time to drop down into something deeper and to get to know ourselves sort of in a bit of a sort of richer, fuller way. I guess everybody here is trying to do that, but it's really hard. It's really hard. Cyberspace means that we're constantly on our screens, and I heard somewhere that actually we often spend more time on our screens per day than we do asleep. So we're so attuned, it's really forming our minds. So we're constantly locked into cyberspace. We get really busy. Consumerism means that there's something driving us to consume the world and to sort of feel like, you know, the next gadget or the next thing will make a difference to us. And I'm sure we're all working on this, and it's not that it's sort of really gross, but it's in there. We, you know, in a way we could examine some of our beliefs and sort of see, you know, what we think does really bring us happiness, or where our mind goes to. You know, all of these things pull us to the surface of ourselves, so we don't give ourselves much space and much opportunity to drop down deeper into our real experience. I don't know how many of you were here for Yanavacha's talk, but I really, really enjoyed this image he used in the first talk. He said, somehow we have to negotiate our experience between a life that's lived just walking to the co-op. So he kept sort of talking about the sort of the ordinariness of walking to the co-op. And I really loved this. It really sort of struck a chord with me. The ordinariness of walking to the co-op, while sort of almost simultaneously holding within our experience the great sort of mystery of what the world is, that we can't really quite even know that, but we have to try and come to know it in a way. We have to be able to hold the wonderful mystery of the human experience and the ordinariness of walking to the co-op. I just feel like the co-op is the best image of this. You know, we're not walking to Waitrose, are we? We're walking to the co-op. It's very ordinary, very, very ordinary. Yeah. So I'd just like to take you back just to your meditation at the beginning of the evening, and maybe just sort of just to yourself, thinking about how that was. How was your mind in that? Did you find it easy to settle into the meditation? Easy to keep a thread through the meditation? Can you remember much of it? Were you a bit sleepy? You were a bit speedy? Were you sort of with the breath? Or did your mind sort of, you know, minds wander, don't they? So, you know, did you notice that your mind wandering, sort of bringing it back to your experience? Yeah, can you sort of remember the quality of your mind, the sort of the flavor, or perhaps the color, or the texture of your mind? What was that sort of like? Because I guess what made the difference for Siddhartha in that moment was not only was he sort of in contact with the sort of the inadequacy of his experience, he was able to then act on it. So he was sort of congruent. He could be congruent with that experience, and be sort of very full and whole in his response. So he is quite integrated, is where I'm going with this. He was an integrated person. He would become more integrated, but he was himself in that. He could see the world, and he sort of was in touch with his response with it. So often what keeps us on the surface of things is that we have a busy mind, and we can't necessarily be that integrated. And my favorite image, well, one of my favorite images for this is, I don't know if anyone here remembers Bridget Jones' Diary, the movie. And it's the sort of thing you watch at Christmas when you're at home or something. And there's a really good scene in that which really spoke to me years back, which was, I don't know, Bridget Jones is flirting with the Hugh Grant character. And the next day she's thinking, I'm going to wear a sensible dress tomorrow. But she doesn't. She dresses in a see-through top. So she comes into work and she's completely unintegrated with what she does. And that spoke to me, because I thought, oh gosh, how many times have I done something like that, or something sort of similar? So I'm, you know, how can we become more integrated? How can we know what we're thinking and then go with that? So often we're caught in what the Buddhist term is prapancha. I feel like I'm a little bit caught in that at the moment, because I can feel this talk is slightly sliding all around the place. And I'm sort of looking at my notes. I'm thinking, I'm sort of a bit lost with where I'm going. It's sort of like, you know, this is sort of like, I just want to sort of throw it all out the window, reverse time, and start about 10 minutes ago. Because I've sort of just got it all a bit out of sequence. So I'm sort of trying to think on my feet, and it doesn't feel like it's quite working. So let me just try and sort of recombobulate and sort of see what I'm doing here. Because I've got mindfulness, and I've got dukkha, and I've got prapancha. And I want to bring them together into some sort of coherent whole. So let me just think for a second. We've got the Buddha, Well, basically, what I guess because I feel like I say this, I feel like I might say the same things again and again. So sometimes I'm sitting up here and I'm thinking, what am I going to say that's different? And it's like, I'm not going to say anything different, actually. We need to practice mindfulness. That is our basic Buddhist practice. That's what I want to say. And I'm trying to sort of say it in a different way, but I'm just going to sort of say, you know, okay, guys, we need to practice mindfulness. This is the basic Buddhist practice because our minds are all over the shop. So whatever your meditation was a bit earlier, think about it and notice how your mind goes. So, and so the way to work with the mind is by noticing the mind. So you've got to notice that we're distracted. We've got to notice that we are caught in prapancha. So prapancha is this tendency that we all have to utterly distract ourselves, to go from thought to thought, association to association, and totally get lost on everything. And when it's at its worst, it's really distressing. To have a mind that's going everywhere is really distressing. And I don't know if you've ever been really, really stressed or really anxious or really overwhelmed, and you cannot stop your mind from turning over. And it's a really, really distressing, difficult place to be in. It's a bit like, I don't know if you ever get those 3 a.m. wake ups and your mind won't stop turning over, and you know, how are you going to work with that? So this is the kind of the normal mind. This is prapancha, just turning over and over and over. And from this, you know, you can pick this up from Yanavacha's talk, we're creating our world with this. It can actually create sort of personal distress with that sort of turning over of the mind. But we also, with prapancha, we create our world from it, make assumptions about how the world works, get upset because someone didn't smile at me and make a whole story about it, or be overwhelmed with deadlines, when actually we've only got about 3 things to do and it just feels like it's just really overwhelming. So with this prapancha, with this sort of associative mind, we are creating our world, but we're also stopping ourselves from dropping down and seeing reality. So the Buddha, I suppose, in his moment of seeing the 4 sights, was dropped down a bit lower. He was present with his experience. He sort of had the dukkha in his experience, but there must have been a presentness to him that means that he could see what was going on, and he saw without the stories the old person, the sick person, and the dead person. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I used to see a lot of, you know, we see old people, but I just used to get a bit annoyed. You know, they're so slow, get on the bus. I won't be like that. Oh, when I'm old, I'm going to whatever, move faster. You know, get on, you know, still be like this, do this. Oh, I won't, you know, I'm going to stand up straight or whatever. Well, you're not, are you? You know, sort of these sort of things about, yeah. I did used to sort of, it was a bit of horrified view of the world. I'm going to push that out there. Old age is going to be out there because it's too horrible to sort of think about. Now that I'm closer to it, it's more moving. So our practice is to get to know our minds, as they turn over and become busy, and bring more and more mindfulness to our experience, so that we know ourselves more, and so that we're not always just on the surface. We can sort of filter down, and we'll be with this mysterious, magical world. So I went on retreat about 3 weeks ago, and I had a really fab retreat. And since I came back, I've been really, really trying to be more mindful. You know, it was a really helpful retreat, and I can really see the prapancha in my experience. I can really see how I race ahead with my mind. It's just turning over all the time, my lists and what I need to do and how things are. And this is a problem and that's a problem. And I'm having a conversation over here with somebody who's not even in the room. But I've got a few mindfulness practices. So Maria and Julia know this. I have a practice to try and walk home, which is very close to the Buddhist center, and just be aware of the prapancha and try and be in my body and try and be in the space and just walk home. Try not to make any plans, try not to get carried away with my mind, just try and slow down, feel my body moving through space and walk home. Sometimes I even do it the reverse and walk to the Buddhist center like that. And then the other day I turned the other way and I thought, oh, I could do mindful walking this way as well. So trying to bring more mindfulness into my daily life. And I was wandering by the river the other day and again, just trying to sort of be aware. And I walked underneath one of the trees with the new leaves. I was really, really appreciating all the, you know, the spring. And the breeze wafted through the tree and the leaves just made a noise. And I felt like my whole body shivered with that movement of spring. And then my whole perspective changed. And I was not walking in my busy mode anymore. I was sort of open. I was sort of present with the world in a way that I couldn't do just with my ordinary sort of trying to do mind. By being open and present, something shifted because, you know, the world spoke. I let the world speak to me and I sort of dropped into a more open relationship. So then I didn't have to try to stop the prapancha. Something sort of shifted and I was present with the world in a different kind of way. So that's my what's the word? My admonition, what's the word to you? More mindfulness, everyone. We need more mindfulness. This is the basic Buddhist practice and we need to get onto it. So we've got only 10 minutes left, but I would like you to just pair up, so just twos. And I'd like you to think of some sort of mindfulness practice that you could bring into your week. So we could be mindful in a variety of ways. You could take up being mindful cleaning your teeth. You could be mindful and not do anything while the kettle boils. You could be mindful. You could have a mindful meal with no radio or television or newspaper or book. You could sit outside and just have a mindful meal a day. You could walk to work without a podcast. You know, what would you like to do? So what would you like to do for this next week? Really think of something practical and short that will help to bring in some mindfulness, just those open moments where you can practice more mindfulness and make it a habit so that we shift the habit of always turning our mind over and get used to a sense of a bit more spaciousness. And then that's attractive and then you want to do it. So get into pairs and have a little discussion about mindfulness. Great. Well, it sounds like you've all got lots to go on with. Sorry, that was a bit of a drifty bit in the middle there. Sorry, just sort of lost my track, really, lost what I was trying to sort of say. So you like it, yeah, there we go. You just got to be yourself, don't you? Yeah, that's right. That's what I wanted. That's what I really want. Thanks, Sabajit. Right then, you guys. Maybe that's going to be my new persona. Yeah. So I hope you've got something simple to do for your mindfulness practice. I'm just going to clean my teeth. That is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to be half out the door as I'm cleaning my teeth. I'm going to be just there, standing, cleaning my teeth, bringing awareness to my experience, just being simple, because it's very simple cleaning your teeth. That is my aim in life. I'm going to do that for the next week.